Welcome. I'm Julie Marie Christensen, and I teach the application of a protective diet for nutritional intervention. Today we're at the Humana Guidance Center, and you were shown a film called Forks Over Knives. How many of you came early to watch the movie? No, you missed it today? Okay, so a lot of you were part of that, so I'm glad you got to see that film. Were you shocked to find out what you could do with your diet to reverse disease from this film?
Mm-hmm.
What was the most surprising part of it?
The dairy and the
not having dairy and not needing as much protein as we assume we need.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so
for me, the most interesting part was the fact that I don't have to worry about erectile dysfunction ever in my life.
that is a part of the movie that everyone's like, oh. And Jerry, of course, had to bring that up. But yeah, that's a precursor to heart disease, that your blood flow is slowed, and men get that alarming experience, and a lot of times it brings them to the doctor for their doctor to then put them on statins, which aren't really going to protect you from heart disease, as you saw in this film. It's just a way to treat a diagnosis of having elevated cholesterol or plaquing in the arteries. So I want to ask about, were you, as far as removing the animal proteins out of the diet, are you guys all clear that that turns on and off cancer cell growth? So if we remove the animal proteins out of the diet, we can actually turn off cancer cell growth. And Dr. Campbell showed that in the film with his studies. He added in the animal protein and the cancer cells grew. He removed it and the cancer cells diminished. So we can turn it on and turn it off. So this film gives us it empowers us to realize that our health future, our health path, it's not a diagnosis of cancer runs in your family and you have no way around it. There are proactive things that we can do if we're at high cancer risk. If we're not at any cancer risk, let's do this as well to protect ourselves completely. Cancer's the #2 killer of all humans in the world. So the #1 killer is heart disease, and Dr. Esselstyn focused on this in the movie. And he showed you how he reversed heart disease in 25 of the most critical patients he was given for his study. Those patients were basically knocking on death's door. They were told by their cardiologist, there's nothing we can do for you further. The one woman that was really featured in the film, she was told to basically prepare to die. And Dr. Esselstyn put her in his study and reversed her heart disease, cleared her arteries and blockages with a whole foods plant-based diet. It's that simple. It wasn't any kind of special medical treatment. And I teach this all the time, and that movie it's such a huge impact. I myself reversed my own heart disease. And a lot of times people see this picture and they think, oh, this is a diet for weight loss. No, there was so much more going on internally in my body when I was obese. I had chronic inflammation, chronic pain, I had plantar fasciitis, I had acne, I had eczema, my body was reactive. There was all these things wrong, screaming basically from inside, I felt like. And it wasn't until I changed my diet that everything was relieved. And now I feel alive in my 40s, where in my 20s I was aching in pain and at high risk for a heart attack.
So, did you have gout also? I
had gout. If you want to learn about all of the wonderful things I had, you can visit the website, protectivediet.com, and it explains my journey, and it's a small article you can read about what I had and what was relieved just by eating a whole foods plant-based diet. Now, as far as what other reasons did you learn from the film to adopt a whole foods plant-based diet? Besides reversing disease, protecting yourself from cancer and from heart disease and diabetes, did you learn anything else in that film? Did they go over reduction in food costs? This is a lot of what I teach in my program, is your grocery bills should be cut in half eating this way easily. Ease in meal preparation. We're not cleaning up after raw meat. That was a big part of cooking for me. When I cooked a standard American diet, I would cook a piece of chicken and I had to disinfect everything. And then I was bringing cleaning products into my environment, and those impact our endothelium because we're breathing them in and our body has to filter them. They affect our liver. So we're not working with those heavy disinfectants anymore because we're not exposed to salmonella in our workspace in our kitchen. There's no calorie counting when you're eating a protective diet. We were talking about this a little bit before class. Weight Watchers and all the programs out there, you're counting points and you're measuring. And with a protective diet, I teach you how to register full. You say, I'm full, I'm done eating. And when you feel full, you've hit about 400 to 500 calories in that meal. And if we eat 400 to 500 calories 3 times a day, for men maybe or more active people, they might have to add in a few snacks or eat a little bit more volume. But that will maintain our ideal body weight perfectly without counting or measuring. And this program and this way of eating also eliminates weight maintenance. You'll reach your ideal body weight, and I don't ever go up or down. I stay the same size. It's been the first time in my life, these past few years living this lifestyle, that I have one size in my closet, because it would be like up and down, and I had my bigger clothes over here and my tiny clothes that I hadn't fit in 10 years, but I was hanging on to them. And now it just stays the same and regulates without the addition of exercise. I exercise because I enjoy it, not to maintain my weight. And exercise was not a part of my weight loss. So just to go over that a little bit. Did you notice, I want to go over a couple studies that were featured in that movie. If you want to catch up and watch the movie, it's free on Netflix. It's a wonderful, enlightening movie, Forks Over Knives. It's a documentary that will empower you with the ability to see that you can change your health path and be in control of your diagnosis and your health future with nutritional intervention. It all has to do with what you're putting on your fork. In one of the studies, the study in Norway where they looked at, Dr. Campbell talked about it, the cancer and heart disease decline happened during the war. When Hitler came in, cancer and heart disease declined because they took away all their livestock. They didn't have any milk, they didn't have any cheese, they didn't have any animal products to eat, so it plummeted. They were healthy. They felt poor and broke, and they were eating potatoes and the foods that we're going to eat today, but their health, it improved. Then, post-war, when the town recovered, they got their livestock back, and then heart disease and cancer emerged, and disease, it was back again. So if we don't have to go through that kind of suffering to get this help. We just need to cut out all of the expensive items out of our diet, all the animal products, the oils, the empty calories of the oils, all of the foods, sugars that break down our endothelium, caffeine, and health will emerge without having to deal with a war, post-war. So I'm going to start then with, today we are making roastless pot roast. So it's a pot roast without the roast, so there we're saving a lot of money. And all of the flavor will be in it. I can't wait to hear your feedback from the samples. And we're also making a Caesar salad with crispy garlic croutons. And I'm going to start with the pot roast, because if I was making this at home and I was serving it with a salad, I would start with my pot roast because it's going to roast for an hour in the oven. And the first thing, I can't work with a cook service here, so I'm going to go through how this works, but there is a link on the recipe for browning onions without oil. It's a video. If you can get to a computer and put that in, I bet even Emily or Kristen would pull it up on the computer for you to see. It's a very short 2-minute video. It's a technique on how to brown the onions in a stainless steel pan or a Dutch oven enamel-coated pan, or you could use your nonstick pan if you want to use that as well, but I usually choose a stainless steel pan. It'll show you how to brown the onions very simply, and all we use is vegetable broth to stop the browning process. They won't burn, but they will include all of the flavor. So for this recipe, we're just going to slice an onion. This is a pot roast, and typically it's not much work to put together because it's home food. It's quick chop, rough chop. There's nothing like that beautiful about preparing it. It's just chopping up the veggies very coarsely. So it's easy to throw together. This is something you could throw together in the morning and you could even leave it on the counter all day. It's all vegetables, it's not gonna go bad, but you could prep this in the morning and then an hour before you wanna have dinner or lunch, put it in the oven. And I do a lot of my meals that way to make this life simpler. When I have a few minutes in the morning, I throw like the chili that I showed you in the slow cooker, or blend up a salad dressing so that all I have to do is come home and toss together a salad. So my onions are a rough chop, as you can see, and I'm just putting them in the bottom of the pan. And I'm gonna allow them to brown. So if I was browning these onions, I would have this on medium-high heat, and I would just let them stick and get brown. And first time cooking without oil, it's kind of alarming. You're thinking, oh, I'm never gonna be able to clean this pan. But it'll get a nice golden brown color. If it starts to get too dark, I call it getting away from you, you just wanna remove it from the heat if you have an electric stove, or turn it down to low if you have a gas stove, and allow it to brown. Don't walk away from it, keep an eye on it. After you do this 2 or 3 times, you'll be an expert. And you want these onions to brown. After they get brown on one side, then take your spoon and stir them up so that they get brown on the other side. And this is called caramelizing, technically, when we're using oil and browning onions. But you're caramelizing the onions without the oil, and you're getting all the flavor. The flavor's not in the oil. If you taste olive oil, it tastes very medicinal. It doesn't have flavor. We get flavor from browning. And the browning does not come from the oil. It comes from the heat and the sugars in the onion. So we brown those onions, and we allow them to do their thing, and when they get nice and brown, or if they start to get away and they look like they're gonna burn, add a little bit of vegetable broth. So that would be the next step in this recipe. So my onions, we're imagining, they're beautiful. They're a caramel color, which you'll see in that video.
Oh, they smell good.
And the link to the video is at the bottom of that recipe page, bottom of the pot roast page. Just ask one of the girls to pull up the video for you after class. And then when I add this to my hot pan, it's gonna go shh, and it's gonna steam up, and all of the brown bits that are on the bottom of the pan, I'm gonna take my spoon and go like this, and it's gonna release those browned onions from the pan, and it's gonna incorporate them into my gravy. And this is gonna have just as much gravy as if I browned the onions with oil and added broth. And then I'm gonna add all of my broth actually when I'm doing that. And then I'm adding one more liquid to season this gravy, which is tamari. This is gonna add a little bit of a salty flavor. I use this in a mushroom gravy you should check out on protectivediet.com. That's another free recipe. This is going to give the gravy the darkness. It's an organic soy sauce that is free of any additives. And on a protective diet, I teach to eliminate the food additives out of the diet because they cause us to crave foods and overeat.
What is tamari?
Tamari is a soy sauce.
A soy.
You can find it at your regular grocery stores here. Everything from Jewel to Fresh Market carries it, Caputo's carries it, Fruitful Yield, Health Food Store, Whole Foods. It's a cleaner soy sauce. Any of the other soy sauces on the market have MSG in them. So this one eliminates this. It's got a salty flavor to it, and it darkens up our gravy. So that would be like our replacement for salt in the recipe. And then we're going to bring this up to a boil, and I'm going to prepare what I call a slurry. I have 3/4 cup of water to 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. This is what's going to thicken our gravy.
Say that again. How much water?
Do you have a copy of the recipe?
Yes.
Yeah.
3/4
The
cup.
pot roast, it should all be on there. 3/4 cup of water to 3 tablespoons.
I see it. I see it.
And if you're tuning in from home, the Roastless pot roast recipe is available under free recipes on protectivediet.com. You can find it there. So if you lose your recipe page, you could always look it up. And I'm just adding this into here. And I'm mixing the cornstarch with the water until it's a nice smooth liquid. This is going to keep our gravy from getting lumpy. Now when I add this to the gravy, I want this to be a nice boil. Let's come up to a boil. And I'm going to whisk this into my boiling vegetable broth and tamari as I'm adding in my cornstarch. And within about a minute of it boiling, it's going to be nice and thick and shiny and be this beautiful gravy loaded with flavor. I'm also adding a teaspoon of poultry seasoning. And the reason I'm adding this to the recipe is this is going to give it a meaty flavor. And a lot of times we think, well, it's for poultry, but it gives it that savory flavor of a roast.
Okay.
Just whisk it in. In poultry seasoning, there's sage and thyme and seasonings that you would typically use on Thanksgiving. But in this recipe, when you sample it, you'll be like, it tastes just like pot roast. That's what everyone seems to say.
Cool.
That's been the review. And then we could also add some black pepper to this. Pepper is always great with potatoes. And then we're adding 1 cup of chopped fresh parsley. Whenever any of the recipes on Protective Diet include fresh parsley, always use fresh parsley. Dried parsley like this is not going to give you the flavor of fresh. We use dried parsley in a lot of recipes as well, and it has wonderful nutritional benefits, but it's not going to give you the flavor of that we're desiring in this recipe. Are there any questions so far?
Now, I'm about to ask, do you use the stems on the parsley
Yes.
as well as the
Yes.
leaves? Okay.
They're nutritionally as wonderful to use the stems, anything green that we can get into the diet. If they're really thick, I take them and I teach what I recommend you try doing is creating what I call a VBB. It's a veggie broth baggie, and it's in your freezer door, a nice big Ziploc bag, and I put these stems in there. And when I want to make vegetable broth, which is very simple, it's all the scraps of the vegetables from everything that I've been cooking for like the past month. I usually collect for about a month. And then I cook up that vegetable broth with some water. I add a few different things in it. There's a recipe on Protective Diet to make vegetable broth. I add like a bay leaf, a little bit of salt if you want, and water. And you bring it to a boil and then strain it. And you have the most beautiful broth, and it's free because it's scraps. So I would
Gotcha.
save these.
On the
And-
fatter ones.
Yeah, for sure. And then I put my onion peels. Onion peels will make a nice dark broth. And carrot tops, celery tops. You want to avoid more bitter vegetables like cabbage or green bell peppers. Don't ever put kale or things like that in your vegetable broth. You'll get a very bitter tasting broth.
Okay.
So all the things that you would typically put into chicken soup without the chicken is basically what I would put in my veggie broth baggie.
Okay.
And I try and keep that, I always keep that baggie in the door of my freezer so that it's accessible, because when I'm chopping, I want to be able to just grab the bag and throw it in there.
There you go.
And then you can start a nice vegetable soup using that broth. Or you could use that broth in your pot roast the next time. You could freeze it.
Oops.
Am I losing this?
Yeah.
Just when he leaves the room. Oh.
Now, where did Jerry go? So chop this up fine, and as you can see, if you're not really skilled with knives, just keep your hand on the top of the knife. I have a knife class in Protective Diet Education, the program that I teach online, that teaches you how to work with big sharp knives. They make it a lot of fun in the kitchen if you have a nice tool to work with, and it doesn't have to be an expensive knife, it's just a sharp knife. So this is about a cup of chopped parsley, which seems like a lot, and there's no mistake that that's in there. That is our greens. We want to eat those leafy greens in our diet, and I camouflage them by putting them into broth and things like this. You're not going to even notice them in there. It's just adding flavor.
Yeah, because as they cook down, they'll wilt, so to speak,
Yeah, and the
or
green won't
they
be
just
as
cook down.
bright. So if you're
Mhm.
cooking for kids or people that aren't fans of anything green, it's gonna neutralize the color when
Cool.
it's cooking in the oven.
yeah.
So then our next ingredient is a stalk of celery. If you don't have it, don't stop and not make this recipe. This just flavors the broth a little bit more. Carrots. I love carrots in my pot roast. As a kid, we ate the pot roast all the time. It was one of our favorites. And my mom cooked for us every day. And we would fight over the carrots because they get so sweet when they're roasted in the oven. So I always put extra. Then there's no fighting.
There you go. And you just cut those the length, oh, okay.
Yeah, just cut them. Pot
rough
roast
nuggets.
Yes, pot roast
Okay.
is a very rustic American dish. So it's not anything that you have to have special knife skills for. The red bell pepper, I like the color of it, I like the addition of it, but it's not necessary. If you don't have one, just skip it. Potatoes, carrots, onions, and parsley will be fantastic. And this is just, again, rough chop.
Okay.
And you're dropping it in. With the potatoes, you can cut them, try to keep them around the same size as your carrots or bigger so that they don't fall apart. I usually do my potatoes, if they're bigger, I cut them in half and then into 2 more cuts.
What kind are you using there?
These are the gold potatoes, but you could use any kind of potatoes. If you have those little red potatoes, those would be great. You would only have to cut them in half. If you have big Idaho baking potatoes, those are fine too. When you're picking out your potatoes, just make sure when you're prepping them, you scrub them with a vegetable brush to get the dirt off.
And any
but-
little islets that might have started, right?
Yeah, you want to avoid potatoes that are green in color.
Okay.
If your potatoes are getting green, store your potatoes in a dark place, a cool dark place. It could be in a cabinet. Just don't forget you put them in there, because I've done that thinking, oh, I'll put them in this cabinet now, and then I go in there and oh, rotten potatoes. So, but put them in a dark place, because when they see light, they start to produce
Sprouting.
and they turn green because they're producing chlorophyll. They are actually doing that because they're seeing the sun. And when they do that, they produce a chemical that keeps pests away, because when potatoes are underground, they're protected in the dark. When they come out, they know they're exposed. So they start to actually produce a natural phytochemical that is a toxin, but it won't kill us unless we ate, like, I think it was 54 green potatoes. It would make us sick. We would have digestive issues. We'd probably end up in the hospital. No one's ever died in the last 50 years from eating green potatoes. But if you have green
We don't want to start.
yeah, if you have green potatoes, throw them away. It means they're old and they've been exposed to
Too
the
much
sunlight.
light.
They've been picked for a long time. They're sitting outside the soil, so we skip on those. The other thing is, if a potato is very badly bruised, it will give off that toxin too, because it's actually protecting itself. It thinks a predator is biting at it, so it gives off that chemical to defend itself. And they'll taste extremely bitter if they're high in that toxin, so that you don't ever worry about being poisoned by it, because you probably wouldn't eat them now if they were green after I told you this, and you would not like the taste if they were loaded with that toxin. So, as far as how many vegetables you put in here, until your pan is full, that's when I would stop. I think I have 8 to 10 small potatoes listed on the recipe. So then you're going to toss this with this gravy. And my gravy today obviously isn't thickened because I didn't have heat to work with. But the gravy's going to coat these vegetables, but they don't have to be covered like a soup because they're going to roast. Now this recipe is not suitable for a slow cooker. Everyone asks me this question. Don't put this in a slow cooker. Put this in your oven at 425 so it roasts, so it gets that roasted flavor. You're not going to get that from slow cooking. You're not going to get that from stovetop cooking. You're not going to get that in a pressure cooker. So those are some of the questions people always ask me. And when you make this, I don't want this to be like a stew. I want this to be like a roast, the roasted flavor. So I would cover this and roast this for an hour. What I would also recommend is when you put this in the oven, put it on a baking pan like you see here, so that if it does boil over, which this one totally did, and fortunately when I was baking it, I had a pan under it, and I don't have to clean my oven rack and the floor of my oven.
Now, why is it, what's the difference between a crock pot and this again?
This is going in the oven. A slow cooker or crock pot plugs in the wall and it's a very low heat. It basically boils your food. This roasts your food. It heats it, but it's a dry heat, and it will turn a little brown. You'll see when we're serving this up, it's got a nice like kind of browned edge to the whole roast, and that gives it the flavor of a pot roast. You would never take a pot roast and put it in a slow cooker and expect it to taste like in the oven.
Yeah, I made one and it was horrible.
You put it in the slow cooker or the crock pot. Yeah, it's like you boiled it. You boiled potatoes and meat. It's almost like soup versus a roasted flavor.
Okay.
So,
And you use 425 degrees in the oven?
yes. And it's all written on the recipe too.
Yeah,
You
that's
don't
the
have to
very
work so
number
hard at
one.
my class, you know. It's all written out for you. Okay, so then we're going to do a Caesar salad, which I don't know if I would typically serve this with Caesar salad, but I really wanted to show you a salad dressing recipe. This meal is a meal in one. If you wanted to add some leafy greens to this, when you're serving it, you could serve it over a bed of spinach, and it's just going to wilt because this is going to be so hot coming out of the oven. I'm going to start with, I have a big bowl of chopped romaine lettuce, and then I made croutons. These are crispy garlic croutons. You have the recipe there. And normally when I make these croutons, I make them using, I have a hamburger bun recipe. Maybe some of you were at the burger class over the summer. I made these little mini buns. I have a great recipe. It's a premium recipe. It's part of my program for burger buns, but this is the alternative for store-bought bread, would be Ezekiel bread. This is in the freezer section of your local health food store, Fruitful Yield, Whole Foods. I think there's some other regular grocery stores that are starting to carry this now too. Myers might carry it. But it's a sprouted bread. It doesn't use any flours, but it does contain wheat, which is good for us. It's very nutritious unless you have a wheat allergy or you have celiac disease, which I do not. So I enjoy my wheat, and I promote wheat for people that don't have celiac disease. So
How many people on average have celiac disease?
it's like 1%.
1% in America?
Yeah, and our grocery store is lined with gluten-free products
yeah.
because
Now
it's a
there's
diet
a lot of
trend.
Gluten-free.
It's not going to promote weight loss. It's actually, studies have shown when you go gluten-free and you find all these new gluten-free products to eat, you gain weight. So they have all these processed packaged gluten-free products on the market. When you initially go gluten-free, you probably will lose some weight because you're going to cut out a lot of cookies and crackers and things that are junk food out of your diet. But then when you start finding healthy alternatives, the weight comes back. So going gluten-free isn't a good idea. It's a dietary trend. Unless you have an allergy, then there's plenty of products on the market that are unprocessed gluten-free products, or I teach you how to make your own bread using oat flour and things like that. So anyway, this bread would be a great alternative if you don't want to make your own bread. And it's a little bit of a difference from typical bread. It's a little rough. I like it better toasted than just plain. But when I use this for croutons, it's perfect. So you're going to take a couple slices just to make it easier. You could stack them up if you want, but this bread tends to crumble if I stack up too many when I'm slicing. You're just going to slice them into squares. Now, making your own croutons is so simple, and they're so delicious, health promoting. you're eliminating all the soybean oil and all the, they actually put sugar in a lot of packaged croutons. That is probably the biggest no-no on the salad bar or in making home salads. I do a lot of cabinet cleanouts in people's homes to get them started on a protective diet, and they will have these bags of croutons or French fried onions and things to top their salads with. We can top our salads with as many of these croutons as we want and enjoy them. They're health promoting. There's nothing negative in the ingredients. So you're just going to cut these up. You're going to cover your baking sheet with croutons.
Now, do you use parchment paper or anything on the bottom
Thank
of
you
your...
for asking that. I forgot to mention that. I have a silicone mat here, and this is reusable, and I like these because I only have to buy them once. And you can wash it off with soap and water and hang them to dry. And this will let your croutons brown if you want to make, I have recipes for French fries or home fries or anything you want to brown in the oven. Use one of these mats. Your other alternative, if you don't want to invest in the mats, is parchment paper by the roll. Now, there's different types of parchment paper. This one I love. It's from Costco, and it is seasonal. So if you're a Costco member, look for it now because they had it because of the holidays. This one's a vegetable-based parchment paper. There's parchment paper that the dollar store, I know. There's parchment paper that the dollar store has, and everything sticks to it. I don't know what it's made out of, but parchment paper is different than wax paper. So look for some vegetable-based parchment paper. You should be able to find it at most stores. The only one I had a real hard time with was the dollar store one. I thought, oh, what a great deal. It's $1. So I bought a bunch of it. I ended up returning the other rolls because it didn't work out. But this is the best value, and this is the most ideal for our environment and our pocketbook because we're only buying them once.
And it's reusable.
Costco actually had a 3-pack of these. That was a really good deal, but I have a link for an Amazon link on the website. You can use that. Or I think all your big box stores carry them now, like Target and Meijer. Go to the kitchen department. You should be able to find them. They're very popular now. People are getting into the whole oil-free cooking. So then what we're going to do next is, I forgot my water spray bottle. I knew I'd forget something. Okay, I have this little mini water spray bottle from the dollar store. It's by like actually it's the Dollar Tree is the one in this area. And it's by like the bathroom section, and I recommend getting one. It's only about this big, and it's clear plastic. They come in purple, pink, and green. And I use that to spray things that I want my salt or my seasonings to stick to. And unfortunately, I forgot mine today, but so you're going to take a little, salt is optional, but you're just going to use a little bit. Now, the little amount of salt that I'm putting on these croutons is nothing compared to the amount of sodium in those packaged croutons, so you're cutting it greatly.
And again, you're using sea salt versus iodized salt.
Any kind of salt you want to use.
Okay.
It's all the same.
I like sea salt better, so I agree with your recipe.
Sea salt is everywhere now. So this is granulated garlic or garlic powder. It's called both things. It's the same thing. And you're just seasoning this up. Then we're using some dried parsley, and this is where dried parsley comes in handy, and it's got great nutritional benefits as well. It's got a different flavor than fresh and works better in dried form for this recipe. And then we have dried oregano. And if you don't like one of these seasonings, leave it out. If you like something that's not on them, add it in. These are your croutons. This is where you can get creative. And then you're going to take your water spray bottle, and I apologize, I forgot mine, and you're going to spray these just lightly so that it sticks, so that you could take it and flip it over and it's staying on it. You know, it's stuck to it. Bake these in the oven for 20 minutes. I believe it's 400 degrees on the recipe, and you're going to have the best croutons ever, and they're health promoting. And these you could put in a Ziploc baggie or a plastic container like I have here, and you can store these in your refrigerator. You want to store this Ezekiel brand bread in the refrigerator or the freezer because it has no preservatives in it. It's very clean, so it'll go bad if you leave these out on the counter. You could also make these ahead and store them in the freezer for up to 6 months.
Cool.
So those are our croutons. croutons. More croutons than lettuce.
That's all right.
And then we have our salad dressing. And the base of our salad dressing is a can of white beans. You can use cannelli beans, you can use Great Northern beans. I would use these over chickpeas in this recipe because they're creamy. It's going to give a nice creamy base. And you want to use these beans with the liquid that comes in the can.
Okay.
So if you're reducing the sodium in your diet, you might want to buy salt-free canned beans. They sell those at health food stores. But the liquid that the beans are in the can actually contains a lot of nutrients because the beans have been sitting in that liquid. So we're incorporating that in this recipe. We're also including, I have to check my, what did I do with my recipe?
I was just saying, we don't have a copy of it on our
It's on ingredients
handout,
here.
so. Where is it?
Yeah.
Caesar salad recipe ingredients.
Yeah.
salad recipe.
So we
Oh, yeah,
have
is the
6
dressing on
cloves
there?
of
I missed
garlic.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it.
So there's 6 cloves of garlic in this salad dressing. That's a lot of garlic.
Oh, okay.
But
Gotcha.
Caesar salad dressing, if you've ever had classic Caesar, there is so much more garlic in it than I put in this recipe. These are really big cloves, so I'm going to go with 4 of them. You can see they're mammoth. And when you're buying garlic, I buy my garlic, I'm a big Costco shopper. I buy this big package of garlic. And you can take these cloves and put them into a Ziploc baggie, just separate them from the bulb of garlic. Put them into a Ziploc baggie and put them in your freezer. And you can actually use them frozen if you have a good, like,
Garlic press.
strong garlic press. So I never run out of garlic because I have this bag of all of these cloves of garlic and I put them straight in my garlic press frozen and I press them into my salad dressing. Then I never have to touch my, I never have to touch my garlic either, so I never get garlic fingers. And the skin of the garlic, you always want to leave the skin on when you're freezing it or pressing it. It just falls off out of the garlic press. It's nothing to clean. This is my favorite garlic press. It's by Xylus. It's called the Susie 2. And it will last you a lifetime. It won't
What is it
break.
called again? A Susie 2?
The brand is Xylus, Zyliss, and the model is the Susie 2.
Okay.
They have a few different versions. This one's my favorite, and I actually have 2 of them. They're always used, both by the end of the day. Garlic is one of the most anti-cancer things we can include in our diet. It's a preventative.
What about the ready-made garlic in the little
Jars.
I would buy the cloves like this and freeze them over that, or just buy one, and use it up and buy a new fresh one. Get yourself a garlic press. You're going to save money this way because it's less expensive than that jar. That jar is full of chemical preservatives. If we press this garlic and we put it in a jar in our refrigerator, it would be moldy in a week. So can you imagine what they put on that garlic to keep it good?
Fresh and
People
shelf,
have those
yeah.
jars of garlic in their refrigerator for years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how old is this? Gosh, how could you go through this jug of garlic? But I use a lot of garlic on a protective diet because it is a protective food. And it's part of the allium family, and it tops the list of anti-cancer vegetables. So onions, garlic, and leeks are 3 #1 things we can include into our diet to promote anti-cancer benefits in food. And when we eat it raw, it's even more protective. Now, if you're cooking with garlic, I learned that if you press the garlic and let it sit for 10 minutes before you cook it, there's 2 compounds in the garlic that actually crush together and produce another compound that is the compound that's related to being anti-cancer. That's the protective ingredient, I should say. So if we can chop or press our garlic, let it sit for 10 minutes before we heat it, it's even better for us. But as long as you're including it in the diet, that's a very technical thing. I have garlic in pretty much all of my recipes or at all of my meals. Like, it's not in the roastless pot roast, but it's in the salad that I'm going to have with it. So it's in every meal, and if you're eating a little bit, that's all you need for the protection benefits. You don't have to chop bowls of garlic and eat it to protect yourself from cancer. You can reduce your risk by eating a whole foods plant-based diet. You're greatly reducing your risk, as you saw in the movie today. And then you can include these other protective foods. All of the foods that you see here are protective, but this is a superstar, including our onions in the roastless pot roast. So then we've got all our garlic in there, and we also have a 1/4 cup, I believe it is.
Yes. 1/4 cup
Tamari,
tamari.
that's not chickpeas, is it, is tamari?
Tamari is that soy sauce that I was
I know,
talking
but
about.
is it made from chickpeas?
Soybeans.
Soybeans.
Always organic soybeans, and it's free of additives, so this is good for you. It's not going to cause food cravings. I do a lot of classes on food additives and how when I remove them out of my diet completely, I stopped going back into the kitchen after dinner looking for something. I was full. I'd eaten a full meal, but I was always looking around for something else to eat. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I had given up sugar, but I still had these food additives in my diet. When I cut out all the food additives, even food additives in mustard, they put ingredients in here that you don't know what they are, like natural flavor or the word spices after they list out individual spices. Those are food additives, and they pay, it's a billion-dollar industry. They're paying food companies, chemical companies to come up with these additives to put in our food to enhance the flavor beyond nature and draw us back to them. We'll always pick the one with the natural flavor. There's natural flavor in all of our soda pop. It's in barbecue sauce. It's in mustard. It's in everything to enhance the flavor out of nature. So the next ingredient is the juice of 2 lemons. And I have this lemon that I think is the biggest lemon I've seen. I'm actually going to juice it into here to catch the seeds. And if you don't have one of these, you could use a fork and just push the fork into the lemon and squeeze it. It'll do the same thing as this little gadget.
Now, you normally roll your lemon before you...
Yeah, you could.
I think they say it gets it a little more juicy, or it just makes the juice come out
Yes,
easier or
especially
something?
with limes, because
Or
sometimes
limes,
limes are
okay.
really hard to get the juice out of. This lemon is a beautiful lemon. This isn't, it's actually an organic lemon, and it's so big. But it's perfectly ripe because the juice is coming out beautifully. And I'm just going to use 1 lemon because this is what I would measure the recipe for, 2 lemons. Okay. I'm getting the juice of 2 lemons out of this one.
Good.
I got a 2-for-1 deal here.
There you go.
Do you buy all organic?
I do when I can, when it looks the best at the store. Because I've cut out all the processed food, meat and cheese and packaged products out of my diet, I have a lot of money left over. So I'm like, okay, well I can buy some organic produce, and I always buy organic leafy greens, my spinach, all those pre-washed greens that you find in the grocery store in the clamshell boxes. I always buy those organic because it's very hard to wash off lettuce leaves. Lemons, I like to cut lemons and put them in hot water and just drink that. So I want the peel to be clean of pesticides. Also, organics pack more of a nutritional punch because they're grown in soil that isn't depleted. Carrots, the carrots in our pot roast are organic. I always buy those organic because the price difference between organic and conventional grown is very little. So I might as well buy organic carrots. Organic celery I usually choose because it's on a list of the dirty dozen. There's a list on the internet you can look up for your most heavily contaminated produce. I don't put a lot of focus on organics or non-GMO because if we're eating a whole foods plant-based diet, we are filled with the antioxidant power in the fruits and vegetables to defend against the pesticides that are being used on the fruits and vegetables. Also, we're eating twice as many fruits and vegetables as the average person. So my nutritional value in a meal is way up here, even if it's conventionally grown. But as you start to notice this pileup of money in your account from eating this way, then start putting some towards eating some organics and see how it makes you feel. It makes me feel better when I know that my lemons are organic and I can put this into hot water, and I know I'm infusing my water with just goodness. There's no pesticides in there. So I'm gonna add the lemon juice, being careful not to add the seeds, although my blender would blend the seeds without a problem. This is a Blendtec blender, which is my favorite high-speed blender. It will grind cement, basically. It just makes all the dressings and sauces beautifully smooth.
Nice and creamy.
We're gonna put a little black pepper in here. That's optional.
And we gotta get the mustard in there.
Oh yeah, the mustard. We have a teaspoon of spicy brown mustard. And when you're picking out mustard, look for mustard that is free of additives. All it should have is turmeric and vinegar, salt,
And mustard seed.
and mustard seed. And then we have nutritional yeast. Now this might be something that's new to some of you. This is a product that's made by, they grow it on beets, but it's not a yeast like we think of rising bread. It actually gives things a cheesy flavor. So we include it in a lot of recipes that we want a cheesy flavor in, like
Scalloped potatoes or au gratin potatoes?
yes, all of those. I do a cheesy scalloped potato. That's a free recipe. You should check out. It's delicious. So we're putting a half a cup of nutritional yeast, and it comes in flaked or powdered form. And it's going to give this a nice cheesy flavor like you'd find in Caesar salad dressing. And it's also loaded with B12. So it's a nice vitamin supplement. That's the only vitamin on a whole foods plant-based diet that we supplement because our foods are not fortified. We're not eating beef, which has B12 in it, because they inject the cow with B12 vitamins. So that's how we would get our B12 on a standard American diet. Instead, we're taking the vitamin through nutritional yeast, and I also take a supplement of B12. So I'm going to turn this on. For adjustments. If it needs something more to you, you can add it then. That's right on. So I'm going to add this to the salad and toss it up. And when I am preparing for my week or even after dinner, I like to plan ahead, turn off the TV, and I make a couple salad dressings, like in the evening before I go to bed, and then I'm set up for the week. And I pour them into jars so that I have them handy when it's mealtime. I don't want to have to make the meal from start to finish. This should be a more convenient life to live for you than something that you're spending hours and hours in the kitchen preparing your meals.
Now when you say you put it in a jar, you prefer glass jars over plastic, don't you?
You can use whatever you like. I
okay.
like glass jars because I have a dishwasher.
Okay,
And I
gotcha.
can put them right into the dishwasher and they don't stain like the plastic does. You can find nice plastic containers. They have all the BPA-free containers if you want to get into that now. I'm actually going to add more to this. It's a big salad.
Good, good, good.
And with this salad dressing, you don't have to measure it out. Go heavy-handed with it. This is beans. This is not oil. So sometimes when you're first playing around with these oil-free plant-based recipes, you're still restricting and measuring, and you'll leave a meal and an hour later you're like, I'm hungry. It's because your calories were very low. I could eat this whole bowl and I wouldn't exceed my calorie need requirements for a meal. So go heavy with the dressing if you like a lot of dressing. It's perfectly fine.
And our server is already here.
So any questions about any of these recipes or the movie or applying this diet and lifestyle?
Can you buy that yeast in the regular grocery store?
Great question. You can find it in this area. You would find it at Fruitful Yield or Vitamin Shop,
Can you
Whole
find what?
Foods,
What are
maybe?
you
the
asking?
nutritional yeast.
For that nutrition.
Fruitful Yield or the Vitamin Shop, they sell it in a can like this, or you can find it in the bulk bins at Whole Foods. That's a better price. I order it online from bulkfoods.com because I order it in big quantities because I teach cooking classes, and Jerry and I eat a lot of it. There's other online resources that are more affordable, but if you're using it on a regular basis, then you can seek those out.
So there's no eggs in this whole Caesar salad, right?
No, we don't eat eggs because they are very hard on our health. They're loaded with cholesterol, the yolk, and then if we go to egg whites, they're loaded with animal protein. So it does exactly what it says in that movie. It'll turn on the cancer cell growth. So we want to eat a nice whole foods plant-based diet so we get this even dose of protein, about 8 to 10% at every single meal. If we divided up all the ingredients that we're eating in these two dishes, they're going to come in at about 8 to 10% protein. A potato is 8 to 10% protein. So every single ingredient that we're having in here works out to about that, and it's ideal for our cells to repair and replenish and renew without growing, causing growth. We don't want to grow. We're grown. We're done growing. We want to repair and renew. We don't want to promote growth in our body because the only thing that's really going to grow at this point is stuff we don't want to grow.
Tummies.
Yeah, cancer. So no eggs. Don't eat the eggs. And if you're eating egg whites, try to find something to replace that meal. I do a French toast that is free of eggs. We just use different batters, alternatives to it. And there's an alternative for every single food. And that's what I focus on, is finding comfort food favorites, converting them over to whole food plant-based recipes so that you don't ever have to go without. If you grew up with a recipe your whole life, I don't want you to go without enjoying that, because that's what's going to derail you off plan because you're having cravings for a food you grew up with or a food that your grandmother made you that was special to you. So you can pretty much find every recipe available remade nowadays plant-based. So we'll serve this up
There's another
now.
question, Julie.
Sure.
Is there a difference in measuring using flakes of yeast versus powdered yeast?
Powdered yeast. The powdered yeast will pack a little bit more in the measure. This one, technically online, it calls it powdered, but if you look at this one, it is a flake, kind of.
Yeah, and the label says flake.
I use a powdered one in all my recipes, so it's close. It's a close measure. This is kind of flaked, kind of powdered. I know what you're talking about, though. Do you order one that's flaked or powdered?
No, I think we got powdered.
Powdered. Then it'll be perfect with my recipes because this one it has some flakes and some powdered, but they don't have to be that accurate. If you're not a huge fan of the flavor of this, cut back on it a little bit and just start adding it in, and then you'll grow to love it. Sometimes I put more in certain recipes, sometimes I take out less. It's not going to make or break how a recipe turns out if it's 1 or 2 tablespoons more or less. It's not going to make a difference. So, all right. Want to help me serve? Yeah. Okay. So, any more questions while we're dishing this up? No? Okay, so how many of you, after watching that movie, are thinking about adopting a whole foods plant-based diet, or how many of you are already eating a whole foods plant-based diet?
I'll answer for
I'm
him.
trying.
Jerry, okay. There's 2 of us in the room. Are you thinking about going for it?
I'm trying, but I have trouble being social, going to people's houses and calling ahead to a chef.
Well, that's when we have to weigh out just to decide what is important to us. And if eating a diet that's going to promote longevity, reduce your time in the doctor's office, reduce your time not feeling well, you can just start dishing these up. I think your friends will understand. Your friends might go, hey, what are you doing? Why are you feeling so good? How'd you lose weight? This is what happens, and then you build this whole community that's doing it.
Or perhaps if you can call ahead and see if you can bring, like you said, Julie, bring a dish of your own that introduces them to it. You know, like the salad, something that's so basic that they wouldn't even think about it. You know, it's a salad, so it's not a problem.
With my friends, if I showed up at their house without lunch, they'd be like, what? Because they want to try it, they want to experience it, and
10+ staff to give you an answer.
you could be that leader of your friends. But I say walk the walk, lead by the best example, and then everyone's going to want to do it. And then all of a sudden you have this community of people eating this way, and you have the support. But we have an online community that is filled with people that are eating this way. If you have a Facebook account, I suggest you join Protective Diet Living. It's a wonderful support group. And everyone in that group is practicing this lifestyle or thinking about doing it. They might be just joining like yourself. But it's amazing what the impact we can do when we really decide and go for it 100%. I mean, I changed my life. Jerry changed his life. He was living on pizza and ice cream when we met. So, can I have some of those bowls? Mm-hmm. And now, you know, his cholesterol's reduced. He lost weight. He's fit and trim without, you know, being tied to a gym. And his, you know, just everything improves internally. After watching Forks Over Knives, most people are like, wait, and they think twice about everything they're eating after seeing the science behind what happens in the body with our diet.
Good job, Julie.
Jerry, do you want to pass these out? Help us pass these out? You're just going to hang out?
Well, we need one more salad, and then we'll do stuff in a second. Don't worry about it.
Thank you for helping.
Well, thank you for reading me.
Yeah, you guys come here and we put you to work. That's how we roll.
Delicious dressing.
That's all we're going to start with, and then have another one in a second. Okay. All you need is one in this corner and one for Jerry.
Oh, you can pass Jerry. You get everyone else fed.
Oh, no, he has to be fed too.
That's
I'm
right.
starting here,
Thank you.
everybody on this side needs it. What did we need? Not far.
Your plastic forks don't work on your bread.
Oh, well, yeah, I need one for me and then you girls.
Yeah, don't worry about me.
How about Amy?
I suppose
She's holding down the front desk, you better get her.
She is. She did work for me at first.
And how about Emily? Is she still here or is she already?
Bring Emily one. Maybe she'll go for it. So what do you guys think of the pot roast and the salad?
It smells great, but I haven't started yet.
All right.
Got a good flavor.
Wonderful pot roast. And the gravy's very good.
And it's very good for you.
Salad's awesome. Croutons are excellent.
Like it? How's the Caesar salad dressing? Is it close
Oh,
to
it's
real
good.
Caesar? Does it taste similar? Yeah? Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. This is what exactly what they were talking about in the movie that you could be eating on a regular basis. It just takes a little effort and an open mind to start thinking, well, you know what? I could make my pot roast really simply without the roast, save money, clear my arteries, reverse my diabetes, all of these things, arthritis, inflammation in the body is reduced, chronic pain is eliminated. So all it takes is simplifying, cutting out the animal products and the oils.
Why do you like the BlendTech blender?
I don't like the BlendTech blender. I love the BlendTech blender. It's a high-speed blender. It actually has 2 arms in it that aren't even sharp, and it will blend anything into a liquid or blend anything into a dip. You could put, what do we put in here? Chia seeds to thicken salad dressings, and it'll blend those little seeds into a thick base for oil-free dressings. This blender will make frozen bananas into the most decadent, what we call a frosty. It's like a Wendy's frosty, but if you like apple cider, just as long as there's an acid in there of some sort, for sure.
Because it wouldn't take but just about 1/4 of a teaspoon, just to highlight it out just a little bit
All right,
more.
we've got a chef in the room.
Oh, I can.
Start writing down your recipes. People are always wanting good plant-based recipes. You're already halfway there.
Add that along with the lemon.
Yeah. Just a touch, just to highlight, and see the difference in the flavors.
Yeah. Okay.
I like it the way you made it, Julie. I like it nice and garlicky.
Is it garlicky?
Oh, yeah.
I have some. Good. Well, that's good, because you know that garlic, it's your protection in this meal. The garlic and
Everything
onions.
I cook is garlic, onions, a lot of sage.
All right, good. That's awesome. All right, well, thanks for tuning in, everyone at home, and take care. Best of health to you.